Good morning. We are off to the Wolf's Lair. That is one of the major kind of headquarters bunker stations that Hitler used here in Poland. We're looking forward to it to see that history. And then we're off to a couple other places today, and then off to a one-night stay in a hotel tonight. And then we're off to a couple more places tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. So it's just kind of a quick couple, 24 hours with the car we rented.
All right, so in front of us on the map, there's no road, but in front of us is a bridge. So this is a land bridge to allow animals to cross safely, which is pretty freaking cool.
We have finally made it to the Wolf's Lair here in Poland, and this is where Hitler spent about 800 days of the war at this location, and this is where the famous Valkyrie assassination attempt happened. We also rented audio guides, so we're able to hear some actors, I guess, tell some good stories about what happened here. Looking forward to experiencing this location. This memorial is set up as a dedication to all the Poles who had to demine the forest.
What I think is interesting about this is that when we were in Berlin, where Hitler was actually, where he committed suicide, is just a parking lot. The Germans will have nothing to do with him. There's an apartment building where he grew up as a kid that's just an apartment building. Like, they don't want anything to do, they don't want any tourist money, they don't want anything from what that horrible man did. But there's places like this that are still doing it, which I think is still good because it reminds people that there was a whole group of people that were with Hitler, and there were people against him and for him, and assassination attempts. So it's one of those interesting, should we collect money through tourism to educate, or should we promote him in no way whatsoever? It's a very interesting question.
So after hearing the Russians had invaded East Prussia, started moving towards this area, Hitler had given the order to destroy, quote unquote, the island, which is the code name for this area, for this particular order. And 8 tons of dynamite was used in each bunker to attempt to destroy anything, so that way Russia could not use anything that was left here. We just finished the Wolf's Lair
What are your thoughts, Chrissy?
I think it was cool. It's interesting because I like doing nature hikes, but usually like the rocks that you're like, ooh, pretty rocks, are real rocks. These are all concrete, actual buildings that have just fallen over, and the trees and the nature have taken over. So it's kind of cool because you got cement and you got wire going through, and I thought it was interesting. The audio guide was great. I'm really glad we didn't have to read all that. So.
Well, and it did beyond what was on the boards too. So stories and letters of soldiers, all those kind of things. One thing I did find interesting is that just the amount of hands this place has changed over the years of just private caretakers, or lack of caretaking rather, because you see a lot of buildings are in complete disrepair, and that wasn't only because the Nazis tried to blow up the buildings after the fact, but it was just nature taking its course and taking over, and nobody knowing what to do or how to preserve it or anything like that. There really was no plan initially once the private hands started having control of this area, but now the Polish forestry and a particular state board within this area is now in control of this and really trying to bring up the tourism and making it a lot easier for tourists to be here. But overall, I think that if you're able to visit, I think you should. It's a really interesting piece of history, both with the assassination attempt of Hitler and just the location is just, it's beautiful. But yeah, really, really happy we came here.
Yeah. We're in Grunwald, Poland. This is the area of the Battle of Grunwald, which is one of the largest and most important battles that happened here in 1410. It was the Polish and Lithuanian Duchy, which was against the Teutonic Knights. So the Teutonic Knights are a very interesting group, where they were originally medics that were trying to help pilgrims go to Jerusalem. They eventually became more of an army of knights, kind of like the Crusaders. They were sent to the Lithuanian-Polish area to get rid of all of the pagans. Well, once they did that, they really didn't have a mission anymore, so they just started conquering and taking over lands, and they had taken over Lithuania and northern Poland. Poland and Lithuania didn't like that, so they started attacking, and this is the area of the biggest battle that happened, and Poland and Lithuania won. After they won, the Teutonic Knights went back to their castle in Malbork, and Poland and Lithuania went and sieged that for a long time, but they were never able to actually conquer it. What are we doing, Michael?
We stopped for lunch at Burger King.
There's a KFC behind us. We chose Burger King. How's driving in the rain?
It's fine. The like 1.5 lane roads is a bit scary, just because then there's these little areas of like inch water, and so your car decides it wants to hydroplane a little bit, and when there's no sides or anything like that, and all there is trees along the lane, it's pretty scary.
It's pretty scary, those little ones. Then you're going fast and people are passing each other, and you're doing a good job, Ben.
Thanks.
We have made it to Malbork Castle, which is the largest UNESCO castle complex in the entire world. We got an audio guide, which is about 3 hours long, which will be nice because we can listen as we go. This was built originally in the 1300s by Teutonic Knights. After the Battle of Grunwald, the defeated army came back here and lived for a number of years. This was eventually sold to the Bohemian king, to another king, to the Polish king. A lot of Polish kings lived here. The Russians owned it for a little bit, and then of course the Nazis owned it for a while. After World War II, it was in disrepair for a long time. They re-repaired everything. You can kind of see right here in this spot. You can see that they re-repaired part of it in the 1950s and 60s, and so it is now back to its former humongous glory. Nothing says to me like old living castles like these balconies outside that were like hallways. It's always looks so cool to me. So right now we're going into the third castle. There's 3 castles here, and that's to signify how big it's gotten. So it started with the third castle in the middle, and then they built another castle around it, and then another castle around it. That's why it's such a big castle. Dzień dobry from Gdańsk. So today's our first day in actual Gdańsk, where we get a tour around. We're going to do a biking tour, which is ironic that someone just biked by us. We're currently standing behind Neptune's fountain, and then we're also on the main promenade walking district, which I'm sure we'll do on our bike tour. So we're going to go try and find some baked goods,
Pastries.
and then we'll go to our biking tour. So these miniatures are all over Poland around any of the municipal buildings or the churches. So these statues are to help people that are blind to be able to see how big these buildings actually are. Gdańsk is a city of first. This is where World War II started. Germany attacked Poland a couple miles east here and took over Gdańsk very quickly. And then it's also the beginning of the Solidarity movement in Poland in the 1980s, when the Poles were done with communism. And behind us is the Black Pearl, where you can do dinners, which we probably won't do a dinner there.
Climb the tower and you get one of the most amazing views. The tower, like inside the building, is originally medieval.
I'm currently standing in the room where the Solidarity movement for Poland started against the communist regime. In 1980, they were able to get the communists to agree on 21 terms, and that's why you see 21 tak in the back, tak meaning yes. In 1980, Russian local government backed down and agreed to the terms of the Poles. Fortunately, in 1981, Russia declared martial law inside Gdańsk and Poland. After 10 million people stood against communism, they brought the military in, declared martial law, and took back over the streets, and at least 3,000 people over an evening disappeared that were part of the Solidarity movement. So it was still a long road ahead for the freedom for Poland.
We're sitting outside of, shocker, wait for the name, St. Mary's in Gdańsk. We're told that the inside's not very exciting because, one, everything was taken out of there either by the Germans or the Russians, and they haven't gotten it back. And two, because the Protestants, when they came to this area, they painted over all the frescoes that the Catholics had done. So we're about to go inside to see what it actually looks like.
We're standing in one of the beautiful streets here in Gdańsk, and what makes this street so unique is that when the Poles got back into their country after World War II, they wanted to rebuild because, I mean, it was completely demolished by the Russians. They wanted to rebuild and make it in a way that it looked before the Germans owned it, because pretty much between the 17th and 19th century, Germans completely controlled the area and were building it the way the Germans wanted to build it. But the Poles then used old paintings and such, because all the papers and maps and stuff like that burnt with the Russian invasion. So they used paintings along with other works of art to be able to recreate what Poland, Gdańsk, all looked like before the 17th century. So it's a really unique spot of the city. What's really fun about this area is that we're standing in front of basically the 3 main entrances, the 3 gates to get into the city. So You have to get through one to get through the second, to get through the third, to finally enter the main corridor of the city that all of the rich people visited. After the main gate, then there is what's right behind me, which is the prison tower. And the whole point of that was, even as leaders and kings, they would be shown the prison tower because they were shown that Gdańsk was powerful enough to be able to even put leaders into prison if they so felt that they were being screwed basically by leaders. The thing at the time was the city was as rich as many of the kingdoms that were inside of the country of Poland. So it's pretty impressive the amount of money that used to come through here. Good morning. We are on our way out of Gdańsk and heading to Warsaw this morning by train. So be there in a few hours. Looking forward to checking out what Warsaw has to offer.
Hey, babe, what are you doing?
Attempting to purchase tickets for a concert in Salzburg.
How many attempts are you on?
I'm on 7, but I'm feeling like there's a number 8 around the corner.
Fun times.
Not a great website.
Hello. So it's 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and we did the silly thing that we've been doing since we got married 16 years ago, which is try to go to a restaurant at 7 o'clock, 6:30 on a Saturday night. So the restaurant was full, as you can imagine. So we went back to our Airbnb, we went to Zapko's, we got ham and cheese, we're having some sandwiches and chips. And then Mike's doing what he always does when we get to an Airbnb, which is clean our dishes, because you don't know who the last person was in here and you don't know how well they clean. So we always clean our dishes, and then we just have, like, these are our dishes for our stay. So we know they're clean, basically.
Today we're going to go on an alternative walking tour, so not just the Jewish district or anything like that, but they're going to show us kind of some other sites that you would want to see at Warsaw.
Our alternate walking tour, which is actually quite interesting, about basically another town outside of Warsaw, its own history, and it actually has the zoo from The Zookeeper's Wife, for those who know that book, that movie. And now Mike is taking me somewhere to a grocery store, and it's kind of scary, but we'll make it. Home sweet home. Good evening. After Mike and I did our alternate walking tour, we went back to our Airbnb, relaxed a little bit, and it's about, I don't even know what time it is, 5 o'clock in the evening, and we're gonna walk around the Old Town area, and we found there's statues everywhere here. Like, it's just nuts. Statues there, statues there, amazing huge building behind us. It's too much to see and too much to find. One thing I've noticed in lots of European cities is they have like educational banners, either about something that's happened in the past or something that's currently going on.
Michael, what's the temperature out?
It is 48 degrees.
What were you just saying about,
I said I'm happy that I was able to convince you to bring our winter stuff.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring my winter coat, and
Here she is wearing it.
on day 31, maybe, of our
Yeah.
trip. Today we're going to go to the large Jewish cemetery here in Warsaw. It was made in 1806. It did not get destroyed during World War II because it was technically out of the city. And it also has the mass graves from the Warsaw Ghetto massacre. And then after that, we're going to go to the Uprising Museum. I'm walking around Warsaw. I plan to go to a couple of cathedrals, and I just wanted to point out there's a statue behind me. This is the memorial for the fallen warriors from the wars. It's Nike from Roman mythology. There are so many statues in this place. I thought that there were some other cities that had more statues, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But no, Warsaw, there are memorials and statues absolutely everywhere. Hey, look. A memorial, another monument, another statue, another one. Hey look, another one, another one. Here's another one. Yep, these count too. They're all over the place. I think I found another one. One final one, found Copernicus. All jokes aside, even though there's a lot of memorials and things around here, it's just to show you that the Polish people are really proud of Polish people and their history and their accomplishments as individual peoples in society. So it's actually kind of so cool to see all these memorials everywhere. Behind me is the Church of St. Anne. I walked by it 3 times trying to find it before I realized that this was the church, because the outside basically looks like a government building, which I guess makes sense since it was probably destroyed mostly during the war. Inside was really interesting because it had a lot of optical illusions. It's neoclassical, so a lot of it is painted inside, and there's a lot of optical illusions. You think that a wall has chiseled edging out of it, but in fact, it's all just painted to look like an optical illusion. So it was really nice. They're doing work inside, so you can kind of peek in, you can see the work and the repainting that they're doing. I also found a little chapel on the side that had some new paintings in it that looked really interesting about the life of Jesus Christ. I just left the Warsaw Cathedral. I happened to be here around noon, and there was a concert, so I found some money and I went to the concert. It was an organ concert. Organs are such amazing instruments, and people that can play them are amazing people, and it was a lot of fun. Underneath, you were allowed to go into the crypt, which was a very well done crypt. Like, they had interactive things you could read, and a lot in English, and a lot of important people's remains are here in the Warsaw Cathedral. Now I'm going to go into Holy Cross Church, which has the heart of Chopin inside. And back to the Airbnb, but I forgot to mention, after the church, a lot of people prayed in there, so I don't want to be too obnoxious. But they did have Chopin's heart. It's inside a vial of alcohol, and then that is inside of the gravestone, so you can't see it. It's just, this is where his heart's buried, in Warsaw.
We have decided before our trip tonight to take a walk around Łazienki Park. are wrapping up our tour in Poland in the city of Warsaw, and we just had a wonderful lunch at the Holokoshiki. We just kind of want to wrap up our thoughts on Poland. Chrissy, what would you want to start with?
We'll start with the dislikes and we'll move our way to the likes. So the first thing that's kind of frustrating is that unless something is super touristy, you're not going to find a lot of English, and you're not going to find people that are going to help you with English much. Even on our bus rides here in Warsaw, the only time we've heard English is when we were near the central station, and it's like, central station, we're like, oh my gosh, English. So that's a little frustrating. And even the audio guides, those are in English and they're great, but there's nothing for Asian languages. Nothing. The second thing I guess I'd talk about, and Mike and I are a little more sensitive about this just in general, but when you're walking down a sidewalk, if someone's walking towards you, you better get out of their way. Whole street is completely open and they decide at that moment to turn and go onto the sidewalk that you are in, you have to move out of their way. It's a little bit infuriating. Like most European countries, you have to pay for everything. So bathrooms, we had to pay for parking at our hotel when we had to pay for our hotel, which was really frustrating. You would think that part of your room is parking, but it's not. Bathrooms are actually, there's quite a few free bathrooms in Poland compared to Paris or Prague, but because you don't know, it's kind of like this crapshoot, like, oh, will it be free? Will it be free? Do I need money? Don't I need money? Like, it's kind of what it is. What about you, Mike? What was one of your bottoms?
I would say the customer service. It was kind of expected going into this what the customer service stance is here in Poland, as we watched many travel videos beforehand. Still, like, to have to work so hard to even try to get the bill, or even just to order sometimes, depending on the place, you kind of sit down and you just kind of wait for a really long time sometimes. The good side of that coin is that they're not really pushing you out of the restaurant like some of the American restaurants do. But at the same time, I would like quicker service on both ends of that service.
And they really don't care if you're there or not. They don't appreciate customers at all. Like, I don't need anyone over the top. Mm-hmm. But it really feels like you're inconveniencing them to go in and buy a candy bar at a grocery store.
Yeah, like when we went to an Argentinian restaurant, like there was actual Argentinians behind the counter, and they were very excited about us being there. They wanted to talk a lot about their food and how wonderful it is, and it was such a different experience than walking into your standard Polish restaurant. So it just goes to show that just like that's just what their culture is. So don't expect huge customer service with a smile when you're going to a Polish restaurant.
Let's move on and talk about the stuff we really, really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. The one thing that is just, it's everywhere, is that the history and culture of Poland is amazing. In the last 500 years, they have been taken advantage of and killed and murdered and had everything stolen from them, and yet Poland is a country, is amazing. And then the culture that they've been able to hold on to through all the different insurgencies and ownerships is just amazing. Another thing I love is that there's markets everywhere. Like, it's called Zabkas or Carrefour Express. They're these little grocery stores. They're basically mini grocery stores, and they don't have the best selection, but they have enough,
essentials, and
they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's, as a traveler, that's been great. When we just needed some food, you can get ramen, you can get some vegetables,
cold sandwiches,
you can get cookies, they're everywhere, and it's absolutely fantastic. Something else is that they're very Catholic here, very Catholic, and I've seen probably more nuns and clergymen here than I've seen in any other country, including the US. And everywhere you go, there's a church you can go into, there's a statue of Mary somewhere, there's a statue of Jesus, and there's absolutely John Paul II. They're very proud of John Paul II here. I think the last thing we want to talk about are just our favorite areas. So for me, and I think you as well, Krakow was our favorite spot. Mm-hmm. We were there for,
9 days.
9 days, something like that. And we were able to do multiple day trips.
The city itself had a really good market area, so you can get that old-time market feel. There was a lot of things to do. There was a lot of history there. It was cheap, and the Jewish Quarter had the best food, Polish food that we ate in Poland. But I think Krakow was my favorite place, followed by Gdańsk.
Yeah.
I think that would have been more interesting. I think we should have stayed a few more days in Gdańsk. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, I think we underserved Gdańsk as far as the amount of time we spent there.
So now we're leaving Poland. I'm ready to leave Poland. We've been here longer than I think I've been in any other country other than the US. So I'm excited to move on, but I'm glad that I went. I'm glad that I've experienced Poland.
Yeah, me too.